Hey everyone, welcome to Data Millennials. I'm Atul, and in this video we are going to see how we can create and customize scatter plots in Looker dashboard. So we will be creating this scatter plot which you can see on your screen from scratch. But before we go ahead and start creating this scatter plot, let's first discuss what exactly is the scatter plot and how it can be useful in your dashboard. So a scatter plot, or known as a scatter chart or a scatter graph, uses dots to represent the values. So these are the dots which represent the values for two different numerical variables. The position of each dot on the horizontal and vertical axis indicates values for an individual data point. Scatter plots are used to observe relationship between variables. So as you can see over here, we have average height and average weight. So these dots represents a relationship between average height and average weight. So if the average height is 3.2, then the weight is 7. If average weight is 8, then average height is 3. Then the age is 6. So let's go and see the data first. So this is our data where age is present over here. We have the average height for each age and we have the average weight in kgs. Now if we talk about the use of a scatter plot, then we can see that it is used to determine whether or not two variables have a relationship or correlation between them. So a scatter plot is mostly used to check the correlation between two variables. In Looker, the scatter plot will show you data as points or circle on a graph, as you can see over here, using X and Y axis. So when you're using X, it is left to right, and when we are talking Y, it's top to bottom axis. It can include a trend line, as I have shown you over here. This is a trend line you can see on your screen. It can include a trend line that shows how the variables in the charts are related. A scatter chart in Looker Studio lets you see the relationship between two metrics for up to 3-dimension values. For example, a scatter chart can show if there is a correlation between height and weight, which I'm showing you over here, of a particular age. It lets you answer questions such as, does weight increases with the increase of height? So if you see, weight increases with height, right? We have few of the data points here where if the height increases, then the weight increases. But if you see the number of data points, you have 5 data points over here and 6 data points over here. So we can say that there is a correlation between height and weight. So there is when height increases, then the weight also increases. So in our scatter plot, we can include a trend line that uses 3 different calculations: linear, exponential, or polynomial, which we will be discussing when we will be creating this scatter plot from scratch. And the general direction of the slope of trend line shows the type of relationship or the correlation between the variable. For example, let me take a screenshot of this. Okay, and go to paint and put it over here. Now the thing is, if the direction of the slope within the trend line of this scatter plot is from left to right, like this, it indicates a positive correlation. In other words, if the value of X is more, then the value of Y will also be more or greater. Then if a slope is downward from upper left to lower right corner like this, then it means a negative correlation, and the lack of slope, something like this, means there is little or no correlation between the variables. Data points near the trend line are more closely correlated than those farther away from the line. So this means that these data points, which is much more closer toward the trend line, shows close correlation. So let's go to our Looker dashboard and create a simple scatter plot. So what I'm going to do is that I'm going to click on edit button here so that I can get into edit mode in Looker, and then I'll add a page so that I can show you how we can create this scatter plot from scratch. So in order to create a scatter plot, the first thing that you will need is a data source. Once you have your data source, then you can go and add a scatter plot. So if you have added your data source, or you already have your data source in your report, then you can go ahead and add a chart. But if you have not added your data source, you can go to resources, then click on manage added data resources, then click on add a data source, and you will be redirected to this section of the connector to data. You can select any of the connector and load your data on Looker. Once your data is loaded, then you can go to the chart option over here, then click on add a chart drop down and select scatter plot under this scatter section, the first scatter chart. Once you click on it, then Looker will allow you to add a scatter plot anywhere on your page. So for starters, Looker will add some of the dimension and some of the matrices for us, but we have to change the values over here, and we'll discuss about the setup and the style section one by one, and we'll discuss each and every option that is available over here in style as well as in setup section, as we'll keep on progressing with our chart. So first of all, let me copy this header from here and put it over here. Okay, and increase the size of this scatter plot. Now let's come to this setup section. So the first option in this setup is data source, and a data source provides the connection between the component, which is this graph, and the underlying data set. If you want to change your data set, you can click over here and select any of the added data source which you have over here. But if you want to add a new data source, then you can click on add data. It will take us to the connector page where you can connect with any of the connector and upload your data or add your data as a data source in Looker. Then we have a date range dimension. This option appears if your data source has a valid date dimension. As you can see over here in our data source, we do not have any date range dimension, so it's blank. The next option that we have is dimension, and dimension are the data categories. Dimension value or the data contained by the dimensions are such as names, description, or other characteristics of a categorical variable. So for us, our categorical variable over here is age only, although it's numeric, but it's categorical variable. So we'll select age only over here, and if you want to select any other dimension, you can select it over here. The next option that we have is drill down. This drill down gives users or viewers a way to reveal additional level of detail within a chart. When you turn on this drill down option, each dimension you add becomes another level of detail which you can drill into. So for us, we do not have any other dimension except age that we have already used over here, so we'll not be using drill down option. Now the next option within setup is metric. Metric measures the thing contained in dimension and provides the numeric scale and data series for the chart. Metrics are the aggregation that comes from the underlying data set. So what we want to do over here in this scatter plot is that we want to see a relationship between height and weight. So we want height on our y-axis and we want weight on our x-axis, right? So for that, we need to come over here in matrix X and you need to select weight over here, average weight in kgs. Then we have metric Y. So this metric X is the horizontal axis matrix. This metric Y is the vertical axis metric. Then over here we will select average height. Okay. Now you can see the distribution of data against the age. So for example, at age 3, most of the people has average height of 2.3 and the average weight is 6 kgs. Now the next option over here is bubble size metric. Setting this bubble size metric causes the chart to display as a bubble chart. This metric determines the size of the data points. So if you select age over here, then what will happen is that, so this age matrix basically in this bubble size determine the size of the data point. So let's remove this bubble size matrix as we do not need this. Now the next option that we have is metric slider. If you slide this, then you will have an option over here to select the average weight as well as the average height, which is your metric value, as a filtration. Your user can select this and put a filtration on this scatter chart. So let's clear this and we'll keep the metric slider on. Now the next option that we have is sort. So if you want to sort your metrics by either ascending or descending, then you can select the ascending here or descending over here. And if you want to change the column by which you want to sort your entire chart, you can click over here and select any of the fields. Now the last option that we have over here is filter. So filter restrict the data that is displaying in the component or your graph by including or excluding the values you want to specify. So if you want to add a filter, what you need to do is that you need to click on add a filter, then you have to click on create a filter, then you have to give name of the filter, then you can either include or exclude a particular value from a particular field which you have to select, and then you can select the condition and put the values over here, and you just have to click save. As we do not want to put any filter, so we'll close this and we'll go ahead with our chart editing. So let's go and click on view. Right now you can see over here that we can make some sort of relationship between height and weight based on their age, right? With the increase of height, you can see that the increase of weight is there. So we can say that there is a sort of positive relationship between height and weight. In order to make this scatter plot more visually appealing, we can go to the style section of this chart and then we can do that. So you might be thinking, what exactly is the style properties of this chart, right? So the style property of a chart controls the overall presentation and appearance of your chart. Within this style property, you will see the first option is scattered chart. So this section controls the appearance of this scatter chart which you have created. And the first option over here is show data label. It displays the individual values of the data point in the series. Then the next option that we have is number of bubbles. It determines the number of data points to display on your chart. If the number of dimension value exceeds this number, which is 1000, only the thousands will appear on this chart. Now the next option that we have is bubble color. It sets the dimension to use the color of the data points of your chart. If you want your bubble color based on age, you can select it. When you select it to none, the bubble displays in a single color. And selecting a dimension, for example selecting age over here as a dimension, causes the chart to display multiple colors. Now the next option that we have within style is color by. So this section controls how your data is colored. The first option that we have over here is bubble order. If we select this, then as you can see over here you have 14 bubbles, right? And you can select the bubble colors from here or change the bubble colors from here. The next option that we have is dimension value. It basically colors each dimension value in the chart with the color specified in the dimension value color map, which you can do it from here. This option ensures that your data uses the color consistently regarding the position of the data in the chart. Okay. The next option that we have over here is reference line. This option, reference line, helps you to compare your data against a particular reference. For example, in our data, we can take the average of height and put it as a reference for the comparison. For example, for our reference line, we'll take metric and we'll put average height. Okay. And then the calculation will be total. No, sorry, not total, average. Okay, so the average height is 4, and we can see that there are 6 records above average height, and there are 6 records below average height. Now if you want to give a label over here, then we can say average height reference line. Okay, now the next option below this label is show label, and by default it will be ticked. If you untick this, then this reference line label will be hidden, but you should always check this line so that the user can understand what is this reference line indicates. And this is the line width of this reference line width. You can increase or decrease the reference line width over here. And then we have 4 different type of styles in which we can put the reference line as a dotted, solid, or you can put it as dashed, as well as you can change the reference line color. Let's put it at red. Okay, now the next option that we have over here is axis. So these options control the display of the chart axis, title and scales. A right y-axis section will appear when you have more than one matrix in your data. As we do not have more than one matrix data in our chart, so this right y-axis section will not appear for us. So the first option within axis is show axis. It shows or hides the chart axis. Then the next option is reverse y-axis direction. It controls the display, or you can say vertical display of y-axis. The next option that we have is reverse x-axis direction. It controls the horizontal display of x-axis. Then under this style section, we have another option of left y-axis. In this left y-axis, the first option that we have is show axis title. If you uncheck this, then the axis title will be hidden. So you should always select this show axis title. Then we have this minimum and maximum axis. You can set the minimum and maximum values for the y-axis. Then we have this custom hash mark interval. It helps you to control the interval between the axis ticks over here. Now the next option that we have is log scale. If you select this, it makes the y-axis scale logarithmic. The next option that we have is x-axis. It's similar to the y-axis which I explained right now. Then we have this grid option. These options control the look of the chart grid. The first option is the axis color. It sets the color of the x-axis line. Then the next option is grid color. It sets the color of the grid line. So instead of showing these grid lines, what we can do is that we can set it at transparent. Then the next option over here is the font family. If you want to change the font, then you can select any font from here. For example, I can select this railway, and all the fonts has changed within the grid. Then we have this axis font size and label font size. You can change the axis font within this grid and the label font. The next option for us is the chart background. If you want to change the background within this grid, then you can select any color from here. So let me go back and undo it. Then the next option within this grid is chart border color. If you want to change the border color, then you can change it from here. Let's keep this color. Okay. Now the next option within style is legend. These options determine the placement of the chart legends, which is over here. So the first option is the legend font color. If you want to change the font color of these legends, you can select any color from here. Then we have the font size. If you want to increase the font size, you can increase the legends font size from here. Then we have an option of font family. If you want to change the font family of legend, then you can change it from here. Then we have these 4 options. The first option is none. If you select this, then no legend will appear. Then the second option is right. The legend will appear on the right hand side. Then the third option is bottom. The legend will appear on the bottom of your chart. Then the last and the fourth option is top. The legend will appear on the top of your chart. Within this, we have this alignment. it sets the alignment of the legend relative to the selected position that we have selected over here. So by default, Looker selects left, but if you want to change it, you can change it to center, as well as you can change it to right. But let's keep center over here. The next option within legend is the max line. So this max line sets the number of lines used by the legend. If the number of series requires more lines, then we can set more lines over here. For example, we have these ages over here. What if we have age till 60? It will not appear properly within one line. So if we want to increase the lines, we can increase it from here, max lines option. The last option within style is background and border. So the first option is background. It sets the chart background color. Then the next option is border radius. It adds rounded border to the chart background. When the radius is 0, then the chart background has 90-degree corners over here. But when border radius is 100-degree, it produces a circular radius over here. Then the next option that we have is opacity. It sets the chart opacity to 100%, as well as other options are available here. So when you set the chart opacity to 100%, it will completely hide object behind this chart. But when you select it to 0%, then it makes the chart invisible. So it's always advisable to select the chart opacity either at 90% or at 100%. The next option within this background and border section of this style is the border color. It helps you to set the chart border color. So let's select red color. The next option below this is the border weight. It sets the chart border line thickness. Now the last option over here within this border and color is the border style. It helps you to set the chart border style in 4 different ways. The first one is solid, then the second option is dashed, third option is dotted, and fourth option is double. Let's change the color to this blue color. Okay, now if we click on view, then you will be able to see a scattered chart. But we have to add a trend line over here so that we can show the relationship between average height and average weight, right? So let's go back and click on edit. Now if we want to have a trend line, what we need to do is that we need to remove this bubble color as age, because each of the age is considered individually, and for each age we cannot draw a trend line. So we have to select none over here. Then we'll get an option of trend line here below the reference line. So a trend line is a line superimposed on a chart revealing the overall direction of the data. Looker Studio supports 3 different types of trend line. The first one is linear. Okay, as you can see over here, let's put the trend line 4 and color as deep black. Okay, now the first one is linear. A linear trend line is a straight line that most closely approximates the data in the chart. To be precise, it's the line that minimizes the sum of a square distance from each of the point. Then we have an option to select exponential. Now if your data is best explained by an exponential trend line or by an exponential of the form, then you can use an exponential trend line to show the direction of your data. The third option that we have over here is polynomial. A polynomial trend line displays data direction as a curved line. It can be useful for analyzing large data, highly variable data series. So if you have very large data, then you can use this polynomial trend line, else you can use this, or generally we use linear as a trend line. Okay, let's remove this reference line so that we can have our trend line. So we also have options for setting the trend line color and weight over here. When you select one of the above option like this, if you want to select the weight, you can select the weight as well as the line color as black. What I'm going to do over here is that I'm going to change this background color to transparent. So let's go and click on the view. Now you can see over here that this trend line shows a positive correlation between height and weight. So this is the major reason we create a scatter plot, so that we can understand whether there is a correlation between two variables or not. And this is how you create and customize a scatter plot in Looker or Google Data Studio. Happy learning and see you in the next video.